David Crowe.
Thanks, Laura. David Crowe from the Sydney Morning Herald and the Age of Melbourne. Thanks for your speech, Treasurer. Clearly, there's a major debate this morning about the impact of this budget on inflation, different views from different economists on that. You've pointed to the budget papers and the energy package, putting that downward pressure on inflation. However, at the same time, in the budget papers, total payments from the Commonwealth sector will go up by 3.7% in real terms over the coming financial year. So that's still a significant amount of money going into the economy when there are these concerns about inflation and the impact on interest rates. When the Reserve Bank meets next month, if they put up interest rates, will that be your fault?
Well, first of all, obviously I don't preempt the decisions taken independently by the Reserve Bank Board. Never have, never will. Don't intend to do that today. But really the defining influence on our decisions around the cost of living package, our decisions around the growth package and the historic restraint that we've shown in spending has been this inflation challenge. And we are supremely confident that the budget that we handed down last night will take some of these cost of living pressures off without adding to inflation. And really the main conversation that hung over all of the decisions that the Expenditure Review Committee and the Cabinet took was a version of this question. And the very clear advice, as I ran through in the prepared remarks a moment ago, is that the fact that such a big proportion of that spending in 23-24 is legacy issues that we had to clean up. The fact that the cost of living package only adds 0.1% of GDP in that period. The fact that our energy plan, the combination of the price caps and the bill relief takes 3/4 of a click off inflation next year, all of these things I think are important demonstrations for why so many of the bank economists in particular have come out today and said at worst the impact on the economy is neutral, and many of them have said better than that. There won't be unanimity about that. You can always find if you look hard enough, you can always find a view at either end of the spectrum, but we're really confident that we got the balance right. We're giving people a bit of help without making the cost of living challenge worse.
Patrick Commons.
Patrick Commons from the Australian newspaper. A major component of the self-healing budget over the coming decade is the big changes to the forecast around cost in the NDIS. It's gone from almost 14% a year to a bit over 10%. How can you justify booking such a major saving on the NDIS over the coming decade without actually having taken the policy decisions to justify that saving?
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. Two things in response to your question. First of all, this notion of self-healing. When governments get an upward revision to revenue, as governments of both political persuasions have at times over the 20 or so years I've been knocking around here, they've got a choice to make. How much of that they spend and how much of that they bank, that is a really key decision. It's a hard decision. So it doesn't feel self-healing when you're sitting around the Expenditure Review Committee table and colleagues have got terrific ideas and you've got to work out what you can afford to spend because your overwhelming priority is spending restraint to fix the budget, to avoid these debt interest payments as much as you can. And so I reject the idea that there is something automatic about the restraint that we showed in the budget. There are hard decisions associated with not spending much at all of the upward revision in revenue. When it comes to the NDIS, if you think about it, the 5 fastest growing areas of the budget, which those of you who join me in the Blue Room from time to time are probably sick of hearing about, the 2 fastest are the NDIS and interest costs, and that's where we've made the most progress in the budget. Avoiding hundreds of billions of dollars in debt gets the interest bill down, as you know, but also the work that, and I pay tribute to Bill Shorten, who's here, the Prime Minister and the National Cabinet. What we're trying to do here is there's been progress in the near term. The increased costs on the NDIS would have been something like $17 billion. Instead, the decisions taken meant that we took about $15 billion of that off the table. At the same time as we work with the states and territories and with the NDIA and the sector and others to moderate some of the growth in costs in the scheme. And our objective here, our primary objective, is not actually budget repair when it comes to the NDIS. Our primary objective, as I've heard Bill say eloquently time and time again, is to make sure that the money is going to the people the system was designed to serve. That's our first priority. And in order to ensure that, we've got to make sure that the increase in costs are sustainable, that we get a handle on these costs. So that's our motivation. We also want to get a handle on the growth in costs. That's what the 8% target is all about. It's making a difference in the structural position of the budget, as someone like yourself would have noticed in the medium-term graphs.